Thursday, May 7th, 2026. And of course, a lot's going on in the world. And we'll be talking about that here on Pod TV and seeing what folks have to say about a number of these news stories and how they are being approached and told about and all along those lines. So, like I said, a lot's going on in the world, including tornadoes in Mississippi. So, that is something that folks are talking about as injuries and damage reported after tornado emergency sweeps in Mississippi. So, tornado cluster in Mississippi damages more than 1,000 buildings. So, nearly 500 homes have been damaged in the Mississippi storms, as multiple tornadoes have been reported in that part of the country. So, looks like there's some definite weather destruction going on in that space. Turner, the creator of CNN and a sports owner, dies at the age of 87. So he was remembered fondly for hosting wet t-shirt college nights after Brave games, like a true hero, according to what Fox News was reporting. And he definitely revolutionized the media industry, and his mark on Atlanta lived on even after he left the spotlight, is what the New York Times is saying. And Jane Fonda paid a heartfelt tribute to the gloriously handsome ex-husband Ted Turner. So she was definitely giving some good words as well. A judge unseals purported Jeffrey Epstein's suicide note. So Jeffrey Epstein's purported suicide note is released by a federal judge. So the court releases that purported suicide note from Epstein, and I'm sure that this will be adding some more fuel to various parts of the story as well. Border czar promises mass deportations are coming to fulfill Trump's promises. So, rebuking Trump, New York set to approve package of sweeping immigrant protections. Defiant border czar brushes away MAGA critics, saying mass deportations are coming. So, Trump immigration czar pledges punishment if New York lawmakers limit cooperation with ICE. And Trump says Iran war will be over quickly, as Tehran is still looking at the proposal. So Trump says Iran has agreed to not have nuclear weapons. Iran reviewing the U.S. proposal, as sources say both sides are moving toward a memo to end the war. Trump threatens an intense bombing if Iran peace deal is not reached. And what are teen takeovers and why are police struggling to stop them? They just want to matter. Swarming teens are testing community order, and that was reported by the Christian Science Monitor. And a Chicago neighborhood shows how to defang the dreaded teen takeover. And let's scale that up, is what the editorial was saying in the Chicago Tribune. So, social media fueled teen takeovers raise concerns in the Houston area as well. So sometimes these teenagers are just taking over communities and all along those lines. U.S. awaits Iran's response to latest proposal to end the war. So U.S. and Iran are closing in on a one-page memo to end the war, according to what officials are saying. And a Florida surgeon who removed the wrong organ says he is forever traumatized by the patient's death. So that's something going on as well. And Rubio visits Rome, aiming to repair White House ties with Pope Leo. Rubio meets Pope Leo after weeks of tension with Trump, and Rubio and Pope Leo meet at the Vatican to discuss the Middle East after weeks of tension and all along those lines. I was actually watching a interview not that long ago, actually earlier today, with one of Pope Leo's brothers, where he's talking about how family is forever and how apparently his brother, the Pope, is constantly beating him at words with friends. And even though they have a different opinion with their other brother, he said that they do get along and have regular conversations, and they try to stay out of the political lane and all along those lines. But they do believe in that whole concept of family is forever and all in that space. So that was something that was in an interview with Aaron Andrews, if I remember the reporter correctly, and everything like that. Crypto Cash could threaten Sherrod Brown's Ohio comeback, so he's softening his tune on crypto. And Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles announces a surprise resignation. So she's going to resign from office, honor of my life, to be the mayor. And some people are asking who will be Charlotte's next mayor after her early resignation. So it's be interesting to see who comes in and takes over in this particular large city here in my state of North Carolina. And Republicans unveil new Tennessee congressional map. Tennessee Republicans plan three-way split of Shelby County districts. So Republicans pose to vote on new House map that would erase Democratic seat in Tennessee. And Stacey Abrams is blasting Tennessee's new U.S. House map. So that's something going on as well. And judge denies Fulton County request to return seized 2020 ballots. So judge won't order the DOJ to return seized 2020 ballots to Fulton County. So judge says FBI can keep the 2020 election records seized from Georgia and everything like that. And the FBI raided the offices of Virginia Senator L. Louise Lucas. So they raided that state senator's office and business in Portsmouth. So top Spanberger ally targeted an FBI corruption probe has a long history of controversy. So that's something else that we're hearing as well. So there's a lot going on in the world and all in that space. And we'll be bringing in my folks and seeing what they've got to say about a number of these stories. I see I've got Rick with me, so I'll be bringing him up very, very shortly and seeing what he's got on his mind as well, because there's always interesting things taking place. Israel strikes Beirut suburbs, threatening already shaky ceasefire. So Israel strikes Beirut for the first time since the Hezbollah ceasefire. So Israeli army is carrying out its first strike on Beirut since that ceasefire. And fatal hantavirus outbreak reported on MV Hondius cruise ship. So hantavirus cases now suspected in 5 countries as authorities are scrambling to contain the outbreak. So inside the global effort to figure out where hantavirus will strike next. So U.S. health authorities are monitoring hantavirus cruise passengers in Georgia, California, and Arizona. And officials are racing to contract trace potentially infected hantavirus cruise passengers. And Russia doesn't have much to celebrate on Victory Day as Ukraine is bringing the war home to them. So Putin's strongman image is fading as Ukraine is bringing the war home to Russia. Kremlin says Putin's security is being tightened for Victory Day events and all along those lines. And German leaders are clashing with spy chiefs over domestic threat from Iran. Iranian threat in Germany more urgent than publicly announced. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And China sentences 2 former defense ministers for corruption. China gives suspended death sentences to 2 former defense ministers. So that's something that's going on in China and all along those lines. So like I promised you, going to bring in Rick Rosner, see what he's got going on in his world. We'll see if other folks join us also. I did see that Kim had sent us a video about killer dolphins and sharks with lasers, even though Hedges says they don't have those that are the dolphins, but we may have them. So
there was a George C. Scott movie 40 years ago about working with dolphins trained to do that kind of stuff. And anyway, you talking about the Pope hanging out with his brothers, talking with his brother, tickled me, and it made me think about what would it be like to be the Pope's girl. And it's like having a brother who's the Pope is like having your brother be Jesus, pretty much. Like, and so what would it be like to have the Pope as your boyfriend, right? Like, I looked it up, and in the first 1,000 years of the Catholic Church, there were more than a dozen popes who were married. Some had kids. Because the rule against being married was not as enforced as it has been. It had the last married pope was in the year 878. So we're talking a long, long time ago. However, I also looked up. You can be a married Catholic priest.
Yes.
The deal is that if you're married before you become a priest, you can, with special permission, you can get ordained as a Catholic minister, particularly, well, in the Russian Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox Church, you can do that. In the regular Catholic Church, if you're a Protestant minister who's married and you decide to convert to Catholicism, you can do that and keep your wife.
So they can keep their wives and everything like that. I know that apparently the Pope plays Words with Friends with his brother regularly, and apparently, according to his brother, he kicks his backside quite oftenly and everything like that. So maybe Pope, if you are doing Words with Friends, you may stumble across the Pope, and you may be playing the Pope, because I used to do Words with Friends for a minute, even though I have not played recently and everything like that.
Me too, but I played on my iPad, but my iPad got so old that it couldn't support the app anymore, so I I gave up, which probably saved me an hour a day. It
Probably
was
safe. Yeah. I was watching a couple of the game shows yesterday just because it was just on TV. So I saw the latest Let's Make a Deal, and also the latest one with the Hollywood Squares and everything like that. Because I think one of the contests was a prize to Antigua, and they had some good prize winnings like they've always historically had. But I just wondered, did you ever do? Because I know you did various TV shows, including some of the game shows and everything. If you ever did any of those that had those big prizes, and are the prizes as much as they are, because I've heard that some people actually wind up losing a lot of the prizes because of the
so
taxes.
the deal is like if you win stuff on The Price is Right, for instance,
Right. That's what I was watching. The Price is Right.
if some of those prize packages are worth more than $20,000,
Right.
and then you're on the hook for taxes. So what you need to do is probably get a more accurate estimate of what the stuff is worth. Like they go off the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And then you probably have to show the IRS documentation that, yeah, they said the car you won is worth $32,000, but that car, if you look at national statistics, generally sells for $27,000. So that saves you a little bit in taxes. So you have to do I never won huge amounts. I went on a show called Debt where they were, if you won the grand prize, they were supposed to wipe out your credit card debt. I came in second. I won a down comforter that they said was worth $600. I think that was less than an amount I had to declare on my taxes. But I was on like 4 different game shows.
Yeah,
but I never had the payday that I wanted.
Yeah, you didn't get the payday you wanted. And I see that they're celebrating, because some of these game shows have been forever on, and I stumbled on, even though I didn't watch most of it, that it's the 50th anniversary of Survivor. It's hard to believe that it's on that long and everything like that.
The 50th season of Survivor.
50th season, right.
Yeah, so they must be running 2 seasons a year.
That's
because it hasn't been on for 50 years.
Yeah, I knew it hadn't been on for 50 years, probably like maybe 25 years. So maybe they're running double seasons and all along those lines. I sent you and then I want to get to something with Sasha really quickly as well, but I sent you a story about, and I talked to Kim about it yesterday, about these blue dot crisis, where a lot of people, including major entertainers like the Pussycat Dolls and others, are canceling their concerts because they're not getting a lot of ticket sales. So it's like apparently.
You sent me an article on something called Blue Dot Fever.
Right.
And that's where, it costs like $250 to get even a medium quality seat at a lot of concerts. And I guess people go online and they look for, and the seats that aren't sold have a blue dot.
Right.
And I think people are like, well, if nobody's going to this concert for $250, I guess I won't go either. So it's probably a self-defeating kind of thing. Then the Pussycat Dolls look at, they're looking at an arena that holds 11,000 people, and they've only sold, 1,400 tickets. They're like, we don't want to play to an empty house. We're going to lose money doing this. So I assume it's like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, that they are losing money. So therefore they are canceling their shows, because they are seeing that a lot of people are not buying tickets. And it's partially because of something that Sasha's been talking a lot about, which is that gas prices are high, other prices are high. So the discretionary spending, which is what entertainment is taking a hit, is what this article
one of Trump's spokespeople, there's Scott Bessent, who goes on and he's got like a shit-eating smirk all the time. The other guy, one guy has like a really weird goony smile. He was talking to like CNBC yesterday saying things are great. People are spending more on their credit cards than ever before. And everybody else kicked in the comments saying that's not great. It's people can't afford, they don't have other money. They're going into debt for everyday expenses. So yeah, gas hit $4.56 national average. the highest so far of this war, which starts its 10th week tomorrow. Gas has only been more expensive, has been more expensive than this for only 8 weeks in all of U.S. history.
No, so gas has been that expensive and everything like that. It looks like today's supposed to be a victory celebration, I guess, for
Well, go
Putin,
ahead
but
and
it's not.
ask Sasha. You had a question for Sasha.
That's where I was going. Yeah, because my question for Sasha was going to be regarding what's going on in the Ukraine and Russia war and all along those lines. Because I do know that this is supposed to be their victory celebration, but it's not much to celebrate and everything like that as far as Russia is going, because the Ukraine is kicking their backside and all along those lines. So it's definitely going on in that space. But they did say Russia is ramping up its attempt to kill opponents in Europe. So I guess they're going on assassination attempts and everything like that. So I just wanted your take, because there was one of the articles, I think it was on The Conversation, says Russia doesn't have much to celebrate on Victory Day as Ukraine is bringing the war home to them, and Putin's strongman image is fading. And I know that's supposed to be one of one of Trump's big buddies and everything like that. So what's your take? Is Putin going to be gone before the end of the year? I know there's talk about Trump being gone maybe by the end of the year or next year, but is Putin going to be gone before the end of the year, whether that's by death or whether that's by him resigning or however else he might get eliminated? But what's your take on Putin's future?
I think it's very possible. There is very interesting thing about the ceasefire regards on celebration of so-called celebration May 9th. So Putin said that there will be 1 day ceasefire just to celebrate that. What's happened actually is that just 2 days ago, Zelensky said that May 4th, I think, that will be a day of ceasefire. I announce it. So what he's taking position is that if Putin can announce it unilaterally ceasefire, so Zelensky can do the same thing. That ceasefire didn't last even a few hours. The Russians were bombing and attacking and so on. So now Zelensky has very legitimate reason to hurt Russians right in the center of Moscow on the day 9th. And in that respect, I don't think that Putin will dare to have a military parade on May 9th. So that's interesting development. Now about a couple of words about the economy. Yesterday, a very big U.S. company, Whirlpool, reported earnings. They're horrible. The bottom line, the sales, the predictions for next year, they're all horrible. The stock tanked. And then in discussions, they said, what would you like us to do, the people with the gas at the pumps, 450 and going even higher, people are not in a mood to do the large purchases like refrigerators or washing drying machine, all that stuff that Whirlpool is doing. So that slows down all economy as a whole. So now let's come back to Iran situation. So 2 months later, what are U.S. achievements exactly? The gas at the pump went up to 450. Hormuz Strait is closed. And now U.S. has to fight and make all kind of deals to have it open. But it was open even before the war. So what's the point? You're stupid idiots, complete debiles, morons. What have you done? You spent billions and billions of dollars to get something what was already open even before the war started.
Oh, well, you know what's more stupid, Sasha, is how they will celebrate Trump and raise their hands to him like he's the Lord their God and thank him for opening the strait, because without him, the strait wouldn't be open. They are so dead-minded, so much on the psychedelic drugs that he has said are legal to take in this country, and that's the way he wants them, that they will believe that it's because of him the strait miraculously opened for the United States.
Did you see the latest picture, Kim? Did he
That's-
have a picture of himself
Yeah.
being embraced by Jesus Christ himself and all along those lines? So I guess he was trying to say that Jesus approves of him and his
I know,
war of
I'm
words
sick
with
of
Pope
it.
and everything like that.
I am nauseated and sick of the misuse. And you know, if you read the Bible, the real Bible, not the Trump Bible, Trumpians and whatever, if you read the real Bible, Jesus didn't stand for people misusing his God, his Father, in their prophet. He just did not stand for it. And he, you know, really got angry. So if you read the real Bible and you believed in it, I mean, I've read several religious books because I think that there's more to religion than just one word of man. But because, you know, there's God, but there's several words a man. And I just think that there's various different ones. I was volunteering at a food bank the other day, hosted by a church, a Baptist church, but in there were people of various different religions. I mean, just various different religions, not just the Baptist religion, all doing good for mankind, right? So I think that what we need to do is get back down to the basics of what God wants, and that's just being respectful and kind to each other as you would do unto him. But the other thing I want to kind of bring up is the Kid Rock Freedom Tour. You and I talked about how the Blue Dot Fever is going around and canceling a lot of tours this year because people just do not have the money to spend on the tickets. But what is curious to me is the misuse and misappropriated use of funds, military funds, to do a video for Kid Rock using our military resources and our Apache helicopters. And of course, they say, you know, it only costs $7,000 an hour just to use the helicopter. But what about all the men that had to participate in it, and who paid for the filming? You know, so I estimate a higher dollar than what they estimate they spent, because of course they're going to say we just, you know, use the helicopter. Well, you know, gas today is more than it's ever been, so that costs a lot of money. How many times did they have to film a scene? So I'm a little perturbed that his Freedom Tour is kicking off by utilizing my tax dollars, your tax dollars, to pay for his video and his video promotion that he's generating money from, and it's not coming back to us. And I guarantee you, his tax cuts, he won't pay anything back in. There won't be any taxes paid on that either. Yes,
Well,
Rick.
gas isn't more than it's ever been. There were a few weeks under Biden where gas was more expensive, but gas is still headed. So gas had an all-time high of $5.06 a gallon under Biden for 1 week. And there were 8 weeks under Biden out of 209 weeks that he was president where gas was more expensive, but we're still headed up. And I was
paying $5.15 a gallon at the pump, and in Kentucky it was about $5.15 a gallon. So
yeah, well, we're paying. There's still a station close to us where you can get it for less than $6, but most LA stations are over $6. Some, if you're in a fancy neighborhood, are at $7. We're still headed up. We might very well reach an all-time record. So I asked AI, is Trump the most incompetent president there's ever been? And it didn't answer directly.
Of course
but
not.
It did imply that he might be. And to find presidents as incompetent, you have to go back to the Civil War era, where you've got Franklin Pierce and you got Buchanan, who set up the conditions for the Civil War to happen. And then you have Andrew Johnson, who took over after Lincoln was killed, and who was impeached for being drunk and being an a-hole, and really shut down Reconstruction and left America in the situation where, you know, we never really finished fighting the Civil War.
If you ever do Civil War research, and not just in the North, who, you know, that is who gets to write the history books. But if you go down into the newspaper articles of just before the war started, you can see that a lot of it was generated out of Abe Lincoln's temperament and attitude, and his anger management issues that he had. But you can see that the war was probably caused by his ego, because he didn't like the fact that he sent men down there to take over and blockade things. And the men from the other side, from the South, had gone to school with the men from the North, and they shook hands and said, "Hey, man, we don't want to kill you. Just, be cool." And they went back, and Abe was going to execute them for doing that. And he said, "You go back down there and you burn every church, every house, kill every man and woman and child before you come back here."
Yeah, I don't know, because
it's not a war, but that's the difference between the history we read here in the South and when you read the newspaper articles about how they fought over the release of slaves. And the city, when they met down in the South in Charleston, the argument wasn't about just, Abe saying you need to release your slaves. They said, "We'll release ours when you release yours." Yeah. And Abe goes, "I don't have slaves," but he did. He had indentured slaves that worked for him. And they said, "We'll release when you do. You set the example. You're the president. You want them to have freedom. You set it up, but you make sure that they have a place to live, that they can sustain, and all of that." And there's various different stories, especially when you get into North Carolina, and you hear and read the stories here. And either way, slavery wasn't right. It wasn't right.
I haven't done the research that you've done. But yeah, the Civil War started a month after Lincoln took office. So, he wasn't responsible for setting up the conditions. He'd only been president a month. The other presidents, the previous ones, Fillmore, Pierce, Buchanan, get a lot of the blame for not heading it off. Though Lincoln did preside over the greatest slaughter of Americans in history. 3% of the population died in the war. That would be like 10 million Americans dying today. So yeah, it was, but yet historians rank him as the greatest president. Though,
well, and the generals, some of them, they wanted to give the African Americans their land, some land to farm with and things like that. And they were rewarding them for helping the war, and Abe wouldn't allow it.
So 40 acres in the mule.
We can wish that Lincoln wasn't assassinated, because who came after him? Andrew Johnson.
This is bad.
Sided with the South, was a drunk guy. And I don't know much about any of this stuff, but shut down. We know how to occupy a territory after you vanquished them. We occupied Germany. We occupied Japan for years after World War II. We helped them rebuild. And a country with a secure economy is a better citizen than we didn't finish the job in the South, and we have a rift that continues today.
That rift is still there and everything.
Well, they didn't do what was right. They said that they were fighting to free the slaves and give the slaves freedom, but in fact, they gave the slaves no means to survive and live, no sustainability process at all. And then when you send people in to reestablish things and you still don't provide that, then you go against the flow of what the meaning of the war was.
That's partially true, but there was a lot of Reconstruction villages that were destroyed that did have a lot of Black representation and everything like that. They were destroyed because of some of the Night Riders and some of the racists that destroyed, even though there was a number of Black senators, Black House of Representatives, and a number of others that were given that 40 acres and a mule and were given some power in the various parts of the South. But then
that's after people stood up for that, and the generals stood up for that. That's after they fought for that. But it wasn't given because of of Lincoln.
No, it
or
wasn't given because of
it
Lincoln.
wasn't that. He said he was fighting for the freedom and their rights, but that's not what the war was about. It was
No,
probably something similar to
of
Trump. It was probably very because of his ego. Most of
It was
it
a lot of
was
ego. I
his
mean,
ego.
and there was ego even to this day. I mean, one of the things we talk about at the Cultural Arts Center that I'll be going to work at later on this evening and everything is there's a big picture of Mr. Duke sitting on one of the stained glasses because he gave money to build the church that was part of the African American culture and everything along those lines and part of our Black Wall Street. So, but he also wanted his face up there, which has been up there for decades now and everything like that. So yeah, he had, as I say sometimes on my history talks, he had a Trump-like ego moment and everything like that. But I do have a question for Sasha really quickly, coming back to the war in Russia and everything like that, because there's been an event that, and we've talked about it before, and a lot of times it's not covered. I think it's a musical event and everything like that, but it's going on in Venice and everything like that. And that is the Biennale. I think I'm pronouncing that right and everything like that. But they admitted Russia, and apparently there was riots and protests, and they had to briefly close the Russian pavilion and everything like that in this music event that has been going on in Venice and all in that space. But I did think that the Russians had a semi-clever idea, Sasha, because one of the ways that they were trying to get people to come to their part of the pavilion was free vodka. So they did get some protests, but they were offering free vodka and everything like that. So I think they were trying to tempt people to come to their part of this. I think it's a classical music event, if I remember correctly, but you would know more than I would, because I think you...
I didn't follow this event really, and I just heard from you for the first time what's happened there. It's quite possible. It's very typical that they would serve vodka and probably red caviar and try to entice people and make them happy. But again, this is so it's not going to help Russians at all. They're losing its war against Ukraine. Ukraine is becoming now the leading world power in the world, maybe behind only United States, but in many respects they are stronger than United States as the drones technology is concerning, and the fact that they have right now 1 million people fighting. It's now the U.S. has an army of 600,000, and they haven't fought for many, many years. So it's not even comparable at all. And U.S. is being more and more ostracized on the international scene. There are many forums and meetings where U.S. haven't been even invited, like one in Yerevan in Armenia. All leading Asian, European powers. Canada was there. U.S. was not invited there. There's nothing to do with U.S. Nobody wants to deal with U.S. By the way, speaking about tickets, now in a month, FIFA World Soccer Championship starts. There are millions of unsold tickets and packages, and many hotels now complaining that their attendance is going to be worse than an average year without championship. That's what
Trump's policies have cost the U.S. about 10 to 12% of its foreign tourism, which amounts to tens of billions of dollars a year. Can we go back to Lincoln for 1 sec? Because 11 states formed the Confederacy, rebelled against the Union. By the time Lincoln was inaugurated, 7 of those states had already seceded. So you can criticize him for how he prosecuted the war, but you can't really blame him for starting the war because the 7 out of 11 states had already withdrawn.
And they'd already pulled out and everything like that.
There is revisionist history. People look at Churchill and say he was pretty bloodthirsty, and he maybe made World War II worse than it could have been. But I don't know. I'm not a professional historian. I know that people tried to appease Hitler before Churchill, and that didn't work.
Yeah, there's definitely revisionist history, and you have different versions of history. Actually, my guest on the online dinner party yesterday was a maritime historian, so he talks a lot about the history of the Navy and different other places like that, because he's written a couple of books, including one about a island that is off of the coast of the Philippines. And I'm trying to remember the name of the island and everything like that, but it's not coming to me, and everything in that space. But I did have a question, and Jacoby may have some thoughts around this as well. I had a call yesterday from a business acquaintance and everything like that. But a lot of people, speaking of drones, which I know you're very big on, Sasha, and everything, are thinking about using drones as a form of security. So there's a gentleman, I think he's out of Atlanta, that is looking at possibly getting with the colleges and using drones as a form of aerial security. So I just wondering y'all's thoughts around this notion, because I'm sure that he won't be the only one. We'll be hearing, we definitely heard about ShotSpotter, but there'll be a number of people that'll be wanting to use drones as a way to maintain security for some of these places like colleges and other places that are in danger as a form of security and everything like that. So what is y'all's thoughts around the notion of drone security?
Who will pay for it?
In the case of the colleges, I think the colleges are supposed to pay for it. So I think that
Wonderful. So they have to pay for it. They have to approve the payments. They have to approve the budget for it, and so on. Good luck.
Yep. And that's
Ukraine makes 4 million drones a year. That's more than 10,000 drones a day. And if they had all the money, they have the capacity, if fully funded, to double that. So yeah, drones are probably the major component of Ukraine's war fighting capacity. And last year, Russia was stalemated. They only were able to capture 1% of Ukraine's territory all last year. This year, they've been losing territory.
And I guess what I'm asking, hold on a second,
ahead.
guess what I'm asking and everything, and that's what I was wanting to hear from you, Kim, as well as Jacoby, because I know he's in that space as well, is that I imagine there'll be a lot of people, not just this gentleman that I had the pleasure of talking to yesterday, that will be looking at various ways to use drones as part of security, because we do have these mass shootings that take place. We do have things that are happening on our college campuses and our business campuses as well, like in the RTP and stuff like that. I think there was just an incident at Amazon recently here in our state and everything like that. So I imagine more people will be trying to use drones as a form of security, and there might be more of these kind of companies popping up that will have to, as you said, Sasha, be paid for and everything like that. But I imagine we might see more things flying in the air that are for security and not necessarily just recreational or taking pictures of events. But what are y'all's thoughts around this possibility of evasive, not evasive, but invasive, I think it's the word I'm looking for.
And then what security? Once, let's see, there are some suspicious people, so the drone can attack them actually and kill. How does it work in your opinion?
Well, I mean, and I worked with NCS for about utilizing drones down in Southern Miss. And there was a big push on getting the capacity of drones developed so that they can fly them longer, carrier, heavier equipment, or make equipment lighter. But I think that, drones are the least of our worries. I think that drones can be targeted and shot back down. So maybe we should go back to pigeons carrying, because what they wanted to do was carry messages and drones, as well as small amounts of supplies for emergencies. Also to help track down missing personnel. Right. Drones are really good search for that, because they can cover a lot of ground that's in the air but low, but they can also be shot down. They can be tracked and shot down. So
let's go back to Ukraine. Russia is losing. Ukraine is killing or severely wounding 35,000 Russian troops every month. That's more than 1,000 a day, and 80 to 90% of these casualties are inflicted by drones, which will be freaking terrifying. You can dig a trench and you can hide from enemy gunfire. You can't hide from freaking drones going over your head.
It was drones that killed our military over in Iran, right? We were not in a drone safe facility. We were open ceiling, and drones can come and fly in and kill you. They can carry enough weaponry, bombs and things like that to kill you. And the people who were there are complaining to Hegseth and all of them that they were not in a safe military secure position at all. So this is becoming a big issue because drones can do that. The other weapon of choice or use of a tool is dolphins. And they call them kamikaze dolphins. They can strap weapons and bombs on them, torpedo dolphins. And Mark and I were discussing this yesterday. So you not only have the air, but you have the sea, right? And Hegseth was asked about this in one of the conferences that they were holding about the war. And what he said really was concerning to me because I don't want to use those sweet, beautiful dolphins as a tool. But he said, I cannot confirm or deny whether we have kamikaze dolphins, but I can confirm they don't. I mean, how can he confirm they don't? He doesn't know what they have or don't have. They've already had, drones. But I do want to say one thing in Ukraine's defense in many of all of this. They are smarter than a lot of people when it comes to war. They spent years being able to develop some of the best war resources than anyone, and that is why the Americans negotiated with them to close it all down. The Ukrainians, that's what they're good at. And they are going to fight with everything they have, but they fight smart. Okay? They will beat the mess out of anyone who comes after them. And if we had not negotiated with them to shut down their war, their military resources like we did, they wouldn't be at war right now. This would not be a problem. But we failed them, and we need to not forget that. We made a promise to them that we wouldn't let them, come under attack if they, sustained their war tools, if they, closed them down. And they did. They were honorable. But let me tell you something. They can build better and more powerful tools and fight better.
Well, I have a question for Sasha, which is Ukraine is spending a huge amount of money and lives in Ukraine. Is this expenditure stopping them from invading other countries?
Stopping whom?
Russia. Well, is Russia
absolutely. This is why Europeans support Ukraine, because they believe that's their best defense of Russian attack. Because if Russians somehow they will overcome Ukraine, or they will win the war or stop the war or whatever, then they have all resources to attack the West, starting with the Baltic states, maybe Poland, maybe something else. Now, speaking about Ukrainians, you have to understand the difference in national character of Ukrainian people. For example, if you take a great nation of France, as soon as Hitler crossed the border, France immediately capitulated. France failed to fight Germans. They did not. They just ran away, surrender. Some of them are made some special republic-like in the south of France and declaring that that's a real France now, not the Paris or so on. Now, England did not surrender to Germans. They were fighting tooth to tooth. Even Germans themselves, if you remember, May 1945, if it wouldn't be agreed surrender, unconditional surrender, by the way, Germans were fighting for each street, for each house, for each position in the war. Even the same day as Germany surrendered, they were still continue to fight. So it all depends on national character. And the Ukrainians are one of the toughest people, and they will never surrender, and they will win the war. They will not just get some kind of peace. Zelensky already said, both to Trump and Putin, please don't bother me with all kinds of proposals that will not be acceptable. Give me something what I can work with. If not, then just keep quiet. He doesn't need Trump anymore. He doesn't need America anymore. They have $120 billion from European Union. They're buying and producing their own weapons. And right now, there is a big movement around the world about stop purchasing American weapons. For example, Europe is now buying a lot of weapons, and they're developing their own suppliers. Swedish companies, French companies, German companies. Canada is not buying F-35s. They're now buying Swedish airplanes and surveillance planes and so on. So the Trump cost America tremendously, including their pocketbooks, because all these defense contractors, they're not going to do the sale, so they will not be paying the taxes, and their shares will not go much higher, and that will reflect how American investors feel in their pocketbooks.
Yep.
That make-
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. and everything
But
like that.
you know, they're spending all of our money on fun things for themselves. The ballroom is really kind of a disgusting
Oh,
situation. But
Yeah, the ballroom
the
is very
fact that he's using it as a we need it, we have to have it. You know, it will connect directly to his bedroom, where he can walk out from his bedroom into the balls room. And you know, I think it's unimportant. Now he's saying that it's a military need, that it's going to have, you know, military grade glass, but you can't prevent a bomb from blowing it up. And we've just seen how stupid they are. If a man really did break through security with a shotgun, you know, walking into the correspondence dinner, I mean, that just shows how slack they are, if you ask me. It doesn't show how smart the man was. It shows how slack they are, or pre-staged the whole thing was, because nobody seemed that scared when it happened.
So do you think American taxpayers have to take a burden of $1 billion to build this ballroom for Trump?
Yeah, we're going to have to pay for it, even though he said, oh, we don't have to. He's already, it looks like a bomb went off there. It's just disgusting. It's all like torn apart and big mounds of holes across the yard. I don't know what those are for, but it looks like military practice being used there if you go visit. But yeah, it's very disappointing that he's
$1 billion is a lot of money. And let's see if Americans will save this $1 billion. And as a result of that, Trump will be killed in his ballroom. So what's the financial consequences for America if Trump is killed? What's the big deal?
I mean, you know, I think it'd be a savings, but I'm not going to promote it because I don't think we should be promoting that. We're watching James Comey suffer, just, you know, quoting something that people have quoted a long time, that we need to ban or get rid of a president. And now he's getting ready to serve time for treason. So.
No, we are not promoting anything. I'm just asking, it's basically a financial question. Okay, here is a position number one. You spend $1 billion in hope that it will save president's life. It may not. Now, second scenario is you don't pay $1 billion. So again, president may be killed or maybe not. So even a worst case scenario that he is being killed, what's the financial consequences for American people?
You have J.D. Vance becoming president, and he's a wild card because Trump has no set political beliefs himself. J.D. Vance, same thing. Vance used to call Trump America's Hitler. But now J.D. Vance is down with the whole MAGA project. But would he change course without Trump? Would that mean MAGA would wither enough that J.D. Vance would be able to step away from it? We don't know.
Well, and J.D. Vance is so stupid, they didn't send him to calm things down with the Pope. I mean, he should have been the person that we sent. And instead we sent Marco.
Well, Vance has to be less stupid than Trump. Vance is an author. He's Ivy League educated. He was in the military. He's got to be more competent than Trump. He's aligned with tech bros, tech billionaires. Sasha, what do you think? J.D. Vance?
I think that he's a creature of exactly this tech bros, as you call them. He has no spine. He has no beliefs. He's really, to men like him to become a president. I would compare it to Don Quayle. in the Bush's time. So,
Yeah.
so I remember the story when people were drinking every day for Bush's help, and one asked, "So, how come? What are you drinking for Bush's help?" Well, he's defending us for Don Quayle, so let's drink it for his health.
They didn't want to have Dan Quayle as a lot of vice presidents that people didn't want. People didn't necessarily want Spiro Agnew to come in as well. I did see an interesting article in NPR, and I'd love to hear Kim's thoughts around this, but also you, Rick, and Sasha, and Jacoby. But apparently, campaign staffers have told NPR that they are making thousands betting on their own candidates. So apparently, we've got the whole thing where the campaign staffers are betting on their own campaign candidates. It's kind of like insider trading and everything like that. So it looks like they are betting on what's going on. So they have done this under conditions of anonymity, of course, but there are some that said myself and others started placing bets before the polls came out, who was working on a statewide campaign in the South. And then sure enough, as soon as that poll came out, the stock went up and everybody made money. So apparently they're betting on their own candidates, or maybe even betting against themselves.
Well, those guys are small potatoes bettors. There have been big bettors to the tune of millions of bucks who have been betting on what the price of oil does when the war would start. Insiders, people with White House knowledge. And like one guy got arrested for a Navy SEAL because he bet on when the U.S. would invade Venezuela to take out Maduro. That guy
apparently that's what they're doing, because they're saying for the campaign staffers, the method is simple. First, they receive a tip of an unreleased poll and compare it with the odds on the prediction market, like Predicted or Polling Market. And the poll reported their candidate had a better chance of winning than the prediction market. They used this edge to buy low-cost odds on their candidate, known as event contracts, before the poll was released.
So I don't have insider knowledge, but I've been betting every month on where Trump's approval would be at the end of the month. And making a few bucks most months because Trump's approval, regardless of what stupid crap he does, stays reasonably steady. But the spreads, the odds given on the spread of possible approvals offer odds that are a little bit out of line. So I'm able to I only bet.
It's a gambler's paradise, actually.
I don't like gambling because it's gambling.
I don't either.
But last month I bet $10, and I bet 10, put down 10. I got back $16. Was pretty happy.
So aside from Trump's approval rating, another big element to bet on is who will he fire next, or who will be removed from office next. That's another big bet. You know, who's going to be scratched, as we say in horse racing. Who's going to be scratched next?
It would be. I think it should be Lutnick, because there was testimony of him in a Congress. And he arranged with Department of Justice that it will be no cameras, and he will be not testifying under oath. So all his testimony was one big lie, and there is nothing you can do about it. Sorry. And all that was, of course, arranged simply because Democrats don't have the votes.
No, we don't have the power at all. We don't have the House poll. We don't.
Well, we might get it in the midterms.
I'm not a Democrat, and I'm saying we don't. As a human, we don't have the pool of people who care about us and care what happened to those children. And it's disgusting because Lutnick has lied from get-go. If you go read the notes that I have been taking since I read the first files that were actually used, their court records that were used in the FBI files. If you read some of this stuff, he was actually, Epstein's neighbor. Epstein was actually on the paperwork of his home and transferred his home to Howard Lutnick. Right. And Lutnick says, I've had nothing to do with Epstein. I don't know anything about him. I've never been to his place. And they have records that he's been to his place in his island. So Epstein's first hub was in Manhattan. So, I mean, it's...
Kim, just really quickly, where are we with that series and everything? Because I did see that they released the suicide note.
yeah, the series kind of got put on the back plate because of a good assignment that I felt like we got, and we weren't making traction with the Epstein Files review. But I would like to reopen that series maybe at a different time when other people can join and discuss it, because it's the real stuff. It's the real court cases, the real evidence. We actually were able to acquire the Black Book that was evidence in Epstein versus Bradley. So it was mentioned there, yet they come around and go, oh, there was no such thing. There wasn't a Black Book. The house manager had made a copy of the Black Book as his security blanket in case something happened. He actually tried to auction it off after Epstein committed suicide. He thought he could make some money on it, and the police arrested him and confiscated the Black Book, but the Black Book was used as evidence in one of the court cases. It was not easy to acquire because the judge did allow it to be sealed, but it was transferred between one and the other. Before we were able to read a lot of the court cases before it was redacted heavily by Trump back in June and July of last year. I noticed that, and I was downloading them, not because I thought they were going to redact them, but because it was easier for me to read. But I was keeping access to the links because that was my evidence to say this is where we acquired this from. But as I would go back and open up the court cases, maybe to relook at something, I noticed that somebody had been logging in and tampering with the files and redacting them. The only person who was able to completely seal his testimony was Elon Musk. He had a good attorney. His attorney, they had to serve Elon several times to testify, to come in and testify. And his complete testimony was 100% sealed. I don't know if a judge can open it.
So here I looked up the odds, and some of the people favored in betting markets to be the next one out are Kash Patel at 52%, Tulsi Gabbard 40%. You got Lutnick at 31%, though this isn't right because that adds up to more than 100%. But yeah, Lutnick's in your top three, but don't sleep on Patel.
Hegseth is in that ranking somewhere because every once in a while you hear Trump blame him for things, and so I'm waiting for that head.
Yeah, but what got what's her name, Kristi Noem, fired? Oh, she did a lot of incompetent, corrupt stuff, but what got her fired was she blamed Trump for something.
For the use of $224 million on her house.
She said Trump okayed
Trump
that.
approved it. She said, because she was asked by Kennedy, I think it was, because he hounded this situation, and he asked her. And she said, Trump approved it. Mm-hmm.
The lesson of this is as long as you don't criticize Trump, as long as you don't make him look bad,
right,
you might be able to hang. Nobody has looked worse than Patel over the last month or two, but he doesn't blame anything on Trump. He might be able to hang on.
Patel reminds me of the guy in Frankenstein. Yes, master. Yes, master. Whatever you say, master.
Oh yeah, the
Igor. Patel reminds me of that
Igor.
Yeah.
Igor.
Thank you, Igor. Kash Patel will survive because he's a yes man, but he drinks as much as everyone else. The liquor cabinet didn't get any punishment whatsoever for over drinking. Any other country, this would not happen, and that's what is embarrassing. As a U.S. citizen, is no other country would tolerate what we have. And I'm just curious, where are the J6ers who demanded, some ethics and, said that they stood for integrity in the office? Where are they? Where are they?
They're hiding. We'll have to get them on the show. But right now,
the 8-6 that Comey is accused of using was used by all the Republicans for years against the Democrat presidents.
Yeah, that
So-
doesn't matter. That doesn't.
No, it doesn't matter, but they are accusing him and sending him to prison for something that they've been
Well,
doing.
they won't. No, unless they form a special tribunal. No
Right.
jury of regular people can possibly. I don't see. Like I would think that any judge who's not a lunatic will throw out the case.
North Carolina is a Republican instituted state. We support the idiocy of anyone, regardless. I hate saying it, but I used to tell my husband I hated living here. And why I haven't moved is just because I love the property that we built together. But that it was brought back to North Carolina, and North Carolina instituted it. They are pushing to serve justice in this case. And my thoughts are, if you're going to do that, then you need to retro it back to the other people who did it as well. But J6 can mean the same thing. Used J6 because that's what the J6ers did. They committed treason and attacked the White House and destroyed it. So, but we're 2 minutes past the hour, and I gotta go.
Yeah,
Take
time to
care,
wrap up.
everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Bye
bye.
bye.
Mark, you need some help running the
No.
outro?
I got the outro right here.
All right. Take care, everyone.